Hello, everybody. Good day. And this is Lyndon Braffett, and welcome to the first episode of What's the Deal series. Now, again, for those of you all who are not familiar with What's the Deal series, especially with it being the first episode, this is where we're going to be asking what's the deal on a specific subject matter and then drilling further down. We're just going to ask simple questions and we're going to be bringing the experts on board to answer those questions. So, as we talk about experts, I am very, very honored to have as my first guest on the What's the Deal series, Miss Beverley Thompson. Beverley, welcome, and how are you?
I am great. I am great. Given the circumstances, I am doing very well.
Right,
Thank
right.
you. Just
How are
navigating like everybody else.
right? How are things in Jamaica?
Things are good. I think we're managing the pandemic as best
Mhm.
as we can with the
Right,
resources that we have. And I think we've been doing well so
right, right,
far, just to pull a few pieces together
right.
so that, we can improve in that area. But things are not so bad, actually, coming out of Christmas, not so
All
bad.
right, right. So, before we get into the questions, and we're going to be talking about strategic sales leadership,
Yes.
I want you to just give people a little bit of of an idea as to who you are and then what is it that you do, and then we're going to flow straight into the questions.
Okay, quickly, I am Beverley Thompson, the CEO of Hulaine Strategic Services. We've been in business for about 5 years now, I think, and we focus our efforts on sales development. So we offer a lot of customized sales development programs, and we actually call them sales development programs with ROI because of
Right,
our methodology. So we train, we help people to transfer the learning in the real environment, and we help them with reinforcement and coaching and measurement to ensure that they get back the real returns on their investment.
right. And
Yeah.
that's excellent. As we know, it's so important right now,
Yes.
right? So, when you and I started to have the conversation, we were talking about one of the things that stands always stood out to me about everything that you share on LinkedIn. And if you guys are not on LinkedIn, or if you are on LinkedIn, go and check out Beverly because she puts a lot of great content out there. Leadership as it
Yes.
relates to sales. And the reason why I want to start with this before I go into any other episode that deals with strategies and everything else is because of the fact that leadership really sets the tone for success,
Yes.
right? So I want to ask you, what's the deal with strategic sales leadership? Can you give us an idea as to what that is and why it's so important?
Okay, thank you for that question. So I know it is sales, but leadership, I think that is
Right.
leadership. That's where, so whether it's sales or any other profession or any other role in the organization, it's a lot
Mm,
about leadership. What's a big deal with leadership? And
right.
in particular, sales, as you were asking. And the big deal is that that's where it starts, that's where the book stops. Strategic leadership is about spending more time on the how, spending more time on the why. Those two big planks, strategic. Why are we doing what we're doing? And how are we going to get there? And you ask those two questions around the direction or the bigger goal of your big company, your medium company, or your one man company.
Right.
And you find that that's where we have issues, even as individuals, consultants ourselves. We go ahead and we do a lot of things without spending the time on the how, the why, and planning around that. And being strategic is not just about now, is mapping out a pathway, mapping out a roadmap
Mm,
for doing different things in your business.
right. So basically what you're saying is that you're really looking at things further down the road. So as much
Yes,
as you have your numbers now, all of
yes.
these numbers really tie into something that's more long term,
That's bigger. That's bigger
right?
than
That's
what's
bigger,
happening today. And you
right?
also have to wrap your head around, even though you're thinking medium to long term, you have to break those smaller strategic goals or things into tactical pieces or objectives with real key results that you
Mm,
can monitor and track and measure on a shorter term.
Right.
And
So,
that's it. Looking at the longer, bigger picture, longer,
right.
but you are managing and measuring and tracking because you may have to change.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're saying a number of things there, right? Talking about management, measuring, tracking.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, Beverly, that from my perspective, sometimes, not in all instances, but in a few instances where in encounters with customers, I find that as a gap. Like I would ask customers simple questions. We ain't even talking big picture stuff. What is your forecast for the end of the month? And a lot of them are unable to say,
Yes.
right? So I don't know if you experience that in Jamaica, but if it is that you do, why do you think that that's such like for the life of me, sometimes I can't, if we're there to help you consult and identify, sometimes it takes a lot more work to get the information because you
Yes.
don't have it readily available.
Yes.
Have you seen a gap like that in your space as well? And why is it you think that maybe companies or maybe the managers themselves not really taking their own impetus to do and develop themselves strategically?
Yes. So what is your forecast and why is a very big question. And and the reasons it's either, good, not so good, or fair or poor is a number of reasons.
Right.
I find that you have to understand how you achieve targets. That's the first thing. You have to understand all the pieces you have to put together. You have to know exactly what number you want to get, how many of those numbers you need to get per week, per day, per hour. Sometimes you will tell you every 15 minutes.
Right.
You need to have a rhythm. You need to have a cadence rather, of routine activities. And so that's almost like, the big circle. In that, you need to have tools that can help you to forecast. One of the big issues is that sometimes we do not have a tool that help us. We may be
Right.
using Excel sheet. It
Excel
works.
sheets, right.
It works, but probably not that efficient. Or the bigger gap I see is that we invest and we have what is called a nice CRM tool, and it cannot help us to forecast.
Right.
And it cannot help us to manage our pipeline, because forecasting is the correlation between your funnel, getting new customers in, the velocity of that,
Right.
qualifying the customers who come through your funnel, and building your pipeline of activities that you
Right.
know sure where you are, etc. If you don't have those things tightly mapped to each other, it's going to be very difficult to forecast. So for example, a rep can, when you ask a rep, okay, let me know what you're forecasting to close in the next, end of January, next week, in the
Yes.
next week. And the rep will say to you, I am talking to 5 customers now, and they tell me that they would like to spend 100K each. For the uninformed sales manager, they take that, they run with that, and they won't tell their organizations that they have $500,000 to close next week. For the educated sales manager, the one who understands the rhythm, okay, who are those 5 customers? Have you qualified them?
Right.
The reasons that you think they are going to close.
Right.
Is there some compelling event or something happening on the customer side that they need to close this deal with you by the 31st of January? What have they said in their organization? Have they gone through their own buying process? Because sometimes it's approved in concept. Somebody bow their head and say, yes, it's great. But the PO has not been done. The vendor form has not been done. The senior manager has not signed off on it. And you, outside of the organization, you don't understand what's happening inside the business that you need to sign off on.
And you're thinking deal gonna close, right?
It's gonna close.
Yeah.
But there's several things. The sales manager don't ask the right questions to make sure that the information that they're getting. The sales rep sometimes don't understand the buying process. And the other piece is that the numbers are not well mapped. So for example, the targets are not very clear. So how can I forecast what I'm going to close?
Right.
And that's just a tip of the iceberg. I just mentioned a few.
Right. Yeah, that's a big part of the iceberg. That's a really tall tip.
Yes.
So you said something there which really stood out. Like you can have whether it's an Excel sheet or a CRM.
Yes.
But unless you have the activities, which has kind of been what my mantra has been since we started 2021, unless you have the activities and then of course you have the principles and the learnings and the skills and the techniques to really understand what's happening at each stage of those activities, then you're still going to have a bad forecast. You're still going to be off on your strategy.
Yes.
And as you said, I like how you did the informed and uninformed sales managers, right?
Yes.
How is it? What would you recommend that sales managers do? Because I have seen that gap. I see managers take, as we say here, take cat and bag, and they just move with the numbers.
Yes.
Or they're not always willing to maybe push their team to drill down to say, that's not a good lead, or that opportunity isn't properly fleshed out as yet. Move it out of their space. Because I learned that the hard way.
Me too.
I would forecast deals, taking the word from the sales rep, then realizing, sorry to say, that your word is no good.
Yes.
You know?
that happens so often.
So basically what you're saying is that sales managers need to build a structure towards achieving that goal, but it starts from the nitty-gritty things within the sales process to be able to now fulfill on those strategies, correct?
Yes, you have to. And sometimes the gap is, unfortunately, the investment in our sales managers is sometimes not as much as we invest in the sales reps or the sales executives. And I often say is that if you equip salespeople, that means you train them, invest in them, you're equipping individuals to achieve their own targets.
Right.
Great, fantastic, because you must have that. But you must invest in the competencies and the skills of the sales manager, because when you equip the sales manager, you're equipping an entire team. And your return on investment is much better.
Right.
So what do they need to do? I think that was the question you were asking me.
Yeah, that's correct.
First of all, you have to recognize that there's a difference between strategy and tactics. So there are a lot of YouTube videos. Educate yourself. Commit to being a lifelong learner.
Right.
And what you do not know, ask and to Google, as I would say. Every answer is there for you. So recognize that. Know the connection between what you do every day to the bigger goals of the company.
Right.
Know those.
Right.
Be intentional. And I said intentional, be intentional, deliberate, focused, make time for planning strategically. Because if you think about how we plan, strategic planning sometimes fall into the very important but not urgent.
Right.
It's not urgent, so we put it off and we put it off and we put it off and it don't get done.
But we're still pushing for the numbers every month.
But we still push it. We're just running down numbers. And as I say, you can throw many spaghetti at a wall and hoping that one will stick. And sometimes you run the numbers down without a fleshed out plan. Right? And getting those. So when you flesh out your plan, you should know why you're doing what you're doing, who you're going to be talking to, which customers do you need, and why. So for example, if you are, in the document management business, or if you're in the printing business, lots of things have changed in that landscape.
Right.
Given COVID and the pandemic, what opportunities have been presented to us, and which of our customers were at risk? So if you stopped and you looked and say which ones may not buy from you now, and they're not buying printers, but what services do they need? They need to know image transfer and moving their physical file cabinet into the cloud and connect. Yes, and connecting their information, because if it's an educational institution, their participants are spread all over the region or all over the country, and so they need to access their documents. You still need to meet your target. How will you meet those customers' new reality as well as their new demands with the products and services that you have? You need to switch your brain.
Right.
And so why are you going after that sector? So if somebody comes to me with a plan and say, I am going after the education sector, as a VP of sales or a CEO, my question is why?
Right.
What is going on in the environment? What has changed for them? What opportunities do they see that you need to fulfill? Or what opportunities do you see that they have not seen?
All right. So basically, you're pushing them. You're pushing them to make sure that you basically, as a CEO, if you're doing that, you're really fostering that, planning on a big
Yes.
scale to go after, to go after a particular market. So
Deliberate thinking. Because one of the things I often talk about in my sales leadership training is you really have to think about, am I doing the right things or am I doing things right?
Right. And what would be the difference between the two?
What's the difference between the two? You could be doing a lot of things right, but are they the right
things?
Strategically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if you could be doing them right, but they're not bringing you the results.
You're doing a lot of tactical things right.
Right.
But are you heading in the right direction?
That's correct. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I heard you say that once before, and now talking to you and you explaining it, it is spot on, because I think a lot of us are there sometimes, right? We get busy doing a lot of things.
Yes.
But is it the things that we need to be doing now to take us in the direction that we want to be? So that is
we have
brilliant.
to be intentional and plan.
Brilliant.
And plan, we need to have, like, as a manager, a quarterly, plan with some milestones and what I want to get done, etc. When am I going to get there? How will I know I've achieved 20% or 30% of it? And be prepared to change, be nimble and agile, because as I say, we can predict a lot of things, just like the pandemic, and things are not going in the space change. And so you have to be looking at your stuff frequently and be willing to adapt.
Last couple of questions. This one is a how question now.
Yeah.
How would you recommend a sales manager or a VP of sales starts inculcating this type? Because I think honestly, that's a cultural way. When we talk about anything strategic, we have to start being two things.
Yes.
Critical thinkers, and we also have to be creative. How would you say organizations should really start inculcating this as part of their culture, as part of their mantra? Because there are some organizations that you and I know don't even have a sales meeting often enough to really connect with the team to understand and share the direction.
Yeah. So you said a couple of things right there. Connect to the team, change direction, critical thinking. That's a whole conversation in itself. So I think thinking critically is never accepting the things that you hear or you see or you read about just on the surface of it. I call it surface thinking. Right. Develop the habit of questioning things. You may hear about the 5 whys. Dig deeper, find out why. When I was in corporate, I never take instructions from my boss without finding out why I'm doing it. It may sound very forward, but why am I doing this? So we don't take things on the surface. Ask why. Because sometimes your why can change the how that your boss told you to do it. Right. Yeah, right? So always critically critique things. Always think that there's a better way, maybe a different way to achieve the outcome. So if you think like that, you don't take things. And when you're also communicating to persons, you invite people to critique your thoughts. You invite people to critique your own ideas, and you have to be open and be vulnerable to that.
Which is, well, I was not going to say that, because some people are not very good at accepting criticism.
Yes.
So
Yes. And you have to understand that it is through collaboration and a combination of ideas that you get the best bang for your buck. Your idea is not the only idea, not the holy grail of truth. So be acknowledging that and accepting it. It makes you more open, and you facilitate other people coming into this space and bringing something, because all of us are unique and we have unique perspectives. You talked about connecting the dots for the team and getting them to understand, getting them aligned. So you kind of have to be clearing out the forest for your team. You will hear me say that the sales leader, they communicate to different groups, your own team, and you have to talk to the strategic
leadership. Yes.
Either your boss or maybe the shareholders. It's two different conversations. So when your boss tells you what they want to do, or when you participate in what they want to do, and you help to shape the direction of the company, that's a nice place to be. When you come to your team now, you have to clear out the forest for your team. You really can't dump on them all the trees and all the forest and everything that are being grown. You have to clear it out and show them a clear way of where we are going and why we're getting there. And when you give them their objectives of making 20 calls per day, they have to understand that making those 20 calls per day will help the company to acquire X% new customers over Y time.
Right.
Or you have to do 3 account reviews per month. You have to understand that account reviews help you to understand where your customers are going. You get ahead of the game, you help them to plan. And when you do that, you're able to generate new revenues from existing customers.
Right.
That connects to the company's strategic goal of retaining our customers, our big customers, our most profitable customers, and also growing our revenues within our existing customer base generally.
Right.
So those are 2 simple examples of helping people to connect. And in your sales meeting, make your team understand strategy, man. That is strategy. Overall, that's where we're going. Let them understand what's in it for them.
And I think too, what happens there is that they also get involved,
Yes.
and especially those that are willing to do the work, because they know, as you just said, what's in it for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Beverley?
Incentivize and recognize and reward.
Correct. Beverley, I just want to say thank you so much for dropping that knowledge as it relates to strategic sales leadership.
Yes.
I mean, you and I know that we talk offline a lot, and we know that there's a gap within the region where that is concerned. Hence the reason why we felt as though it was such an important topic to bring to the table today. So
Great.
Thank you. And for those of you all who are looking at this, Beverley, if you can just let them know where they can find you, what channels they can follow you on.
Oh, you can find me at hulaine.com. That's my website. Facebook, Hulaine Strategic Services. IG, Hulaine Strategic Services. YouTube, Hulaine Strategic Services. And LinkedIn, Beverley Thompson /
Okay. That's the one difference. All right. So Beverley, thank you very much. And look out for the other episode, guys. We have a lot more interesting content and insight as it relates to business, marketing, entrepreneurship, sales, personal development, a lot of great speakers and some one-on-one individual messages as well. All right, guys, take care. Have a great day and peace.
Thank you.